To be able to explain the idea of Eitz Hadas, we were speaking about different levels in our avodah that's shaykh to have a unique l'chetzonim. And we went through a whole list of things, the way it is in Maisa of mitzvahs, in Gnos Hasadim, in Tzedakah, in davening, in learning, in midas, in moichin. And then we traced it back to the level of the spheres, how all the levels of the spheres, in Malchus, how there could be a unique, in Zeir Ampin, in the midas above, how could be in Bina versus Chachma, or Chitzonius HaKeser versus Pnimis HaKeser, even in Iron Soflif Tzimtzum, and so on. So these all the lower levels that it's possible to be a unique for the Chitzonim, that we're going to connect. That's the level of Eitz Hadas. The level that's beyond it, beyond limitations. All these levels are limited levels, and therefore they allow for the klippus to be yonik. The levels that are beyond that, we're going to explain, is the Eitz HaChaim, and that's necessary to be brought into the picture. You need to have the level that's higher than Medidav Agbola, we said, to be able to cause and ensure that the levels that are according to Medidav Agbola do not become susceptible to klippah. So we're in the middle of the topic of speaking about how in Chochmah it's not possible to be a Yenika of the Chitzonim. Again, we're on top of the sixth page of the copy, is page 430. So he says, top of the page, from the perspective of the sphere of Chochmah, it's impossible that the klippus should have any type of nursing, any type of chayis. The since Chachma is the level of vision, like it says, my heart saw much wisdom. So we see that Chachma and Re'iyah have to do with each other. When you get to the level of vision, over there cannot be any contradiction to what you've seen. That's the difference between seeing and hearing and understanding about something. Like the Chazal say, that hearing is not the same as seeing. When a person hears about a matter and comprehends it in his mind, it's possible that though he grasps and understands the matter very well. Still in all, if he will have proofs, the opposite of the matter that he heard, the matter that he heard that he understood will become weakened. And if the proofs will be very strong, what he heard will be completely contradicted, and he won't give it any credence anymore. As opposed to something that he's seen, that vision, when he sees the matter, though he'll have all types of questions and contradictions on what he saw, he doesn't care whatsoever about the fact that he doesn't, that he's not understanding it. It makes no logical sense. On all the questions and types of disproof and disputes that they will ask him, that the only answer he'll give, that he himself saw it, and he saw it with a sense of sight, not just an intellectual vision. Just like in the similar vein is concerning Chachma, like the Chazal say, who is considered a Chacham that sees what will be born, what will be the outcome of something. What's the meaning that he sees the outcome? The specific language that the Chazal uses is that he sees, not that he understands what will be the outcome, what will result from this. Rather, he sees now with his mind's eye schar mitzvah, the reward of a mitzvah and the loss of an aveda. Therefore, since he sees it in his mind's eye, it's beyond just understanding, it's impossible for anything to contradict it. So getting back to the point that we're talking about over here, so on the level of Chachma, when a person does his avodah with the level of Re'iyah of Chachma, as opposed to doing his avodah just with the understanding of Bina and contemplation of Bina, it doesn't allow for klippus, for the Chitzonim to nurse from that. Now we're going to go up to a higher level. We spoke about earlier in the Maimer that in the Re'usa de Liba, the will of the heart, a deep down connection that a Yid has with Hashem, that is beyond even the level of his bonus, beyond the level of intellect, totally. There's also two levels, like in all the things, all the stages that we've been talking about, there's two levels. The lower level that's limited and it's possible for the klippus to be yonik. And the higher level, which is unlimited, that the klippus can't be yonik from. So over here, the same thing we said, Ru'usa de Liba. That in Ru'usa de Liba, there's, for example, you could have a deep love between two friends, that even though it's something that is beyond intellect, still in all, it needs something to sometimes awaken it. It can become concealed. That level of Rusa de Liba, that's a lower level, that's a limited level, and that is possible that it can come to a state and situation where, again, klippus can nurse from that, klippus can interfere with that. Then we said there's a Rusa de Liba that's higher than that, that has to do with the essence. It's beyond the level of revelation. That's like the love of a father and a son, that goes beyond any type of love and bond, and that can never be limited, and that can never be concealed. That is always there because it's an essential bond. In the same way, our Ru'usa de Liba with Hashem, if it's only the lower level of Ru'usa de Liba, that is susceptible to stop and to be concealed and limitations, versus the higher level, the essential level of Ru'usa de Liba, that cannot be touched by the klippus. So he says in the last two lines of this paragraph, last three lines of this paragraph, so too it's also in the will of the heart. The bechinas Ru'usa de Liba shaloi, that his will of his heart, that he's connecting to Hashem, it's not a result of a revelation, and therefore it can be, and it needs to be awakened and inspired by something. Rather, it's a result of the essence, the vekas etzim be'etzim. It's a cleaving of the essence with the essence. And when you have a cleaving of Hashem's essence and the Yid's essence together, the aim b'zeh machizah, there cannot be any hold on it from klippus. In truth, even light pushes away darkness. And when you're dealing with the essence, you're not dealing just with the light, you're dealing with the source of the light. How much more so when we're dealing with the luminary itself, with the essence. So when you have the essence come into play, so then there cannot be any possibility for klippa to grab hold of it. So now the Rebbe is going to connect this with what we started speaking earlier in the beginning of the Maimer, that Makoshesh Eitzim, that the Makoshesh Eitzim was comparing from the word Hekish, Makoshesh from the word Hekish, Eitzim, the two levels, the level of Eitz Hadas and the level of Eitz HaChaim. So what we asked, what's the problem with Eitz Hadas? Eitz Hadas is, the Zohar says that you differentiate between good and bad. That's fine. That's wonderful. What's so terrible about it? And also, it was the very fact that it was in Gan Eden means that was part of Kedusha. So he explains, according to all the above will be understood, the idea of the Eitz Hadas. The Is of the Targum Yerushalmi brings down Man da Ochel Menei. I'm sorry, it was not Zohar said this. It was a Targum Yerushalmi says, whoever eats from the Eitz Hadas, Mafrish ben tav lebish. He distinguishes and he separates between good and bad. So seemingly, what's so terrible? So he says the afasher b'madregis hakadusha, though this is in the level of holiness. Like we said, if it's part of the Eitz Hadas, if it's planted in Gan Eden is only things that are holiness are over there. So still in all, Mikol Makim liyoser the Davag Bola. since it is in a measured way, it's a limited way. What's the reason and what's the point of separating between good and bad? It's because of the eating of the fruits, and according to his eating, so is the separation, weiter geht es nicht. And it doesn't go any further. In other words, it's a very limited expression of his connection. Okay, this is good, I do it. This is bad, I don't do it. It's a limited avodah, like we spoke about in all the levels of Maisa and Dibur and Machshava and Midas and Moichin and Rustoliba, how when we deal with the limited level, it can always come out bad from it. It's possible that can result from this bad. So even though again Eitz Hadas itself was in Gan Eden, therefore Eitz Hadas itself must have been part of Kedusha, but it allows for klipa to come from it. Rather, instead of the avodah being in the Eitz Hadas, which allows for klipa, we need to have the avodah in the level of the tree of life, that Eitz HaChaim is shalamaylam emdidav agbola. It's beyond measure and boundary, and once you have the avodah, it's beyond measure and boundary, then v'acharkach efshar liyas havodah gam b'bchinas Eitz Hadas. Then there can also be the avodah of Eitz Hadas. In other words, you cannot separate the two. You cannot go ahead and say, I'll just do the Eitz Hadas alone. The Eitz HaChaim needs to inform and impact the Eitz Hadas. Like we mentioned before, that even when a person does his avodah that's in a mugbaldik way, in a limited way, in a bounded way, he needs to have a consciousness or a ha'ara or something of the infinite avodah that permeates the finite avodah. This is what he's saying over here, that the Eitz HaChaim, which is corresponding to the avodah in a way that's infinite and without limitations, should impact and permeate the avodah of the Eitz Hadas that's with limitations. So that will ensure that the klippus will not be able to nurse from the Eitz Hadas because of the Eitz HaChaim's influence in the Eitz Hadas. This was actually the supernal will. What was the original idea of Hashem before Adam Rishon messed up was that first the person should eat from Eitz HaChaim, and then he should eat from the Eitz Hadas, because the Eitz HaChaim ensures that the Eitz Hadas will be in its appropriate way. But if you don't do it that way, so then you have problems. So he says, the way of avodah of the Eitz Hadas, since it is possible for it to connect with klippus, and klippus can have an achiza, can have a hold over there. So Eitz Hadas is about descending and dealing with the birurim, refining the sparks. It engages with the world, it engages with klippa. But if you only have Eitz Hadas alone, though it does such an amazing avodah, the avodah of refining the sparks, but if you don't have the power of the Eitz HaChaim, actually, it's possible when I become so immersed in dealing with the birurim that the klippus can nurse from it. Therefore, there has to be the tree of life that's beyond boundaries. Once you ate from the Eitz HaChaim, then that ensures that the Eitz Hadas will be able to be mevarer berurim without becoming dragged down. In a similar vein, this type of relationship between the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz Hadas is our daily avodah. The beginning of our avodah begins with Moida Ani and also Hoidul Hashem. The whole idea of Moida and Hoidu is Shuaido, Bittul, Shalomaylam, Matamadas, Shalomaylam, Didvag Bol. It's a level of admitting to Hashem and sublimation that's beyond reason, beyond understanding, beyond any type of measure and limitation. And afterwards, you could now meditate in davening, especially in the psukim of praise and the brachs of Krishma. But only when could you engage in the meditation through being prefaced by bittul. And in general, also engaging with the world after davening, it can only be done once you started off with the Maidani at the beginning of the day. So now he's going to bring this into the story and the different meanings of what took place with the Makoshes Eitzim. Vizel much closer Vihyuh b'nei Yisrael Midbar. Vayimtzeu ish Makoshes Eitzim yom HaShabbos. So on that pasuk, the Pirush b'Zohar, base Pirush, that the Zohar explained two explanations. Ha-Pirush kipshutai, the simple meaning of the Eitzim, hu inyan Eitzim achrinon, that the wood is other wood, not the wood of the Eitz Hadas, etc. Pirush Rarachav, so Reb Chaim Vital explains what's it mean, the Eitzim achrinon, the other wood, shu ayin sodim. It's the 70 ministering angels that have to do with the 70 nations, meaning it has to do with Klippas Noiga. And the chayes of Klippas Noiga, he was Mikoshish. He separated the created Yesh from its source. According to some opinions in Chumash, what the Aveda that the Makoshes Eitzim did was he uprooted trees. Rashi explains he gathered, but there's a different explanation that he uprooted them. So this is the same idea, that the Yesh, the Ayin Sodim, is about separation of the Yesh from its source. So Commission is spoiled, look at the Torah. Bedrush the Makoshes Eitzim, like to explain, look at the Torah and the Maimer on the Makoshes Eitzim on Parsha Shlach. Pirish Abbei is the second explanation the Zohar is, which he hikish as Eitz HaChaim v'Eitz Hadas, later is a Memrav. He compared the Eitz HaChaim to Eitz Hadas to know which is greater. Pirish beZori Chama, and the Zori Chama commentary and the Zohar explains, Shehichlit, that Adam Rishon came to the decision, Asher Eitz Hadas Urav, that Eitz Hadas is greater, and that's why the Adam Rishon decided to eat from the Eitz Hadas. Why did he think so? Didn't we just now explain that Eitz HaChaim is believable and Eitz Hadas is mugbal, and then because Eitz Hadas is mugbal, therefore it's susceptible for Klippa to hold on to? So how did he come to such a conclusion that Eitz Hadas is greater? Why? So he says the reason is Liyah shebeitz Hadas agreser avoida, because in Eitz Hadas it's a greater service. You're dealing with the whole intent and the purpose of creation. You're elevating the sparks that's in creation. And therefore he felt that Eitz Hadas is greater than Eitz HaChaim. That's what means Mikoshes Eitzim. He was hikish, that he compared the Eitz HaChaim to the Eitz Hadas. And he made a mistake. And that's why he ate from Eitz Hadas first before eating from Eitz HaChaim, which was problematic. Now the Rebbe says these two explanations in the Zohar, base Pirush Meilu, these two explanations, are associated and connected one with the other. Through comparing Eitz HaChaim Eitz Hadas, and then as a result of that, he gave precedence and preference to the Eitz Hadas. V'hifrid as Eitz Hadas Eitz HaChaim. And he separated the Eitz Hadas from the Eitz HaChaim. Instead of, like we said before, that even when I'm doing a limited avodah, the avodah of the Eitz Hadas, I need to make sure to influence it and impart within it the infinite avodah, the avodah of the Eitz HaChaim. The avodah, what does that mean? Avodah, that what did Adam Rishon do? That his avodah was totally in a measured way, in a boundary type of way, with limitations, without benefit of the Eitz HaChaim, which is unlimited. And concerning the spheres, what did he do? Malchus has to do with Eitz Hadas, Zeir Ampin has to do with Eitz HaChaim, and he separated the two. He separated Malchus from Zeir Ampin. Mikoshish, he says, which means he's a gathered, or however we translate the word Mikoshish, he divides it into two. Mikav Sheish, from the line of the six. What he did was he took the Eitz Hadas and he separated it from the six spheres higher than it. He took Malchus, which is the Eitz Hadas, and he took it away from the line of the six midas of Zeir Anpin. Hine, kasher choser b'chinas vav, when it's lacking the level of the vav. The vav of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is the numerical equivalent, the gematria of the number 6, indicates the 6 spheres, but also the idea of the line shows also what Chassidus says, there's briach hatichen hamavriach min hakotzer lakotzer. There's the center line of the spheres. There's the spheres that are on the right, like Chochmah and Chesed. The spheres that are on the left, like Gvura and Bina and Hoid. And the center line, but reaches to the highest levels from Keser, all the way down to the lowest level of Malchus. And that's also what the Vav indicates. Not just the Vav indicates the 6 midas, but it indicates that center line from Keser all the way to Malchus. So by the Makoshish Eitzim, he was Mikav Sheish. He separated from the Kav. In other words, he was missing that connector. Kasher Chosar b'chinas Vav, when it was lacking the level of the Vav, Shuam Shochem b'chinas Malchus mitiferes v'Keser. He didn't have the drawing down into Malchus, which we said is the Eitz Hadas. From the level of Tiferes and from the level of Keser, all of them indicating beyond limitation. Tiferes, the fact that it combines two opposites, shows that it's outside of the world limitation. Keser, especially in its higher level, is also beyond limitation. So he only wanted to have Malchus, only the Eitz Hadas, the limited level, and he took away the Vav. He didn't want to have that connection. So then, from that resulted the second thing that happened in Makoshish Eitzim, the second explanation. Through that, what resulted was that the Nivroim that came from Malchus were also separated from their source, because he made a separation between the Eitz Hadas and Eitz Chaim, between Malchus and higher. Until it became out literally, the simple meaning of the pasuk, that by separating the yesh from its source, you could actually do an aveda, and he literally gathered wood or uprooted the wood on Shabbos. We asked at the beginning, why does it say It should have said the other way around, that it was in the day of Shabbos he was Makoshish Eitzim. So why does it say it in that order? The B'Shabbos Aliyas HaMalchus. Shabbos is the time, and it has to do with Malchus. It indicates that the Aliyas Oilamas, especially Malchus going up, because Malchus is the level of the Asarim Amoris, they rise up on Shabbos. And Shabbos, it's felt also in the created beings that they're nullified to godliness. And like the Gemara brings down, the Rebbe or refers to it in other places, even on Amaoretz, Ein Meshaka Shabbos doesn't lie on Shabbos, meaning that Shabbos influences even the creation. And the truth is, it shouldn't be limited to Shabbos. And truth is, even during the days of the week, it should be the connection of the created beings with Elikus. But for sure on Shabbos. That's what he says, that there was a Makoshish Eitzim b'Yom Shabbos, that the separation was felt even on such a day like Shabbos. Even the day of Shabbos, when Malchus is Oila, he separated Malchus from Zoh, from the higher spheres, from the Teferes, from Keser. He separated Eitz Hadas from the Eitz Chaim, Hoy Makoshish Eitzim. ויהיו בני ישראל במדבר וימצאו איש מקושש עצים ביום השבת. The Yesh B'Zeh Beis Day is there are two opinions when this event took place. If it was before Matan Torah, and especially according to the opinion that this took place after Matan Torah, so for sure it was a very severe thing. The Beis Day is even though, according to one opinion, it may have taken place during Matan Torah, before Matan Torah, but it was in the location where Matan Torah would be taking place. It's supposed to say Eitzim over here, the mem is extra. Still in all, even a place where the Torah was given, they found a person that was like separating the Eitz HaChaim from the Eitz HaDas, separating the Malchus from the higher spheres. The Shoresh HaDavar Hu, how could it be that in the physical sense this took place? The Vishehekish Eitz HaChaim Eitz HaDas, he compared Eitz HaChaim Eitz HaDas, and the service was in a measured and bounded way. But the manner of the person's service has to be beyond boundary. Out of the essence of the soul, that it's embraced and cleaving to you, like we said, that's the true idea of Rosa de Liba. How does one reach that level of the bond of the essence of the Rosa de Liba? Like we say in Sukkis, the Eshanis, through carrying your yoke, which is Kabbalah's oil, that through carrying the yoke of Hashem, we have the ultimate joining that we also say on Sukkis. Through that we reach to a level of Ma Yechida becomes totally united and one.